Hi there, Vee Gang. How are you doing? It's Vongai Motsi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time coming through to my channel, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming through. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment. And if you're a regular Sabi, welcome back. Hey, welcome back to yet another episode of my channel. On this episode, guys, we are going to be talking about how you can prepare for your thesis. If you're interested in this type of content, stay tuned for more. I'll be right back. Subscribe. So are you struggling with your thesis? You don't know where to start, how to start, what to write? Well, fear not, because I have just the tips for you. Believe it or not, I was in the exact same position when I had to write my master's thesis. This was a requirement in order for me to graduate my master's degree. And don't get me wrong, I had written many class assignments, essays, tests, exams, articles, etc. throughout my entire higher education career. But writing a thesis is definitely different. I really thought it was going to be a walk in the park, but boy was it a task. So I will break this namely into before your thesis, during your thesis, and after your thesis. So what is a thesis, you may ask? Or what is a dissertation? Basically, a thesis paper is a long essay that poses an interesting research question and persuasively answers it, along with an introductory paragraph providing background information on a topic you are examining. You will write a thesis statement that includes your own personal stance on the topic. Before your thesis, you need to be in line with all the requirements expected of you before you begin writing. Talk to your student advisor to ensure that you have fulfilled all that's required of you before you can graduate or before you can start writing your thesis. That includes all the necessary paperwork. Maybe there are certain forms that you need to fill that the institute needs, that the supervisor needs, that the department needs. Make sure that you have that all in check. In most cases, you will need to have a supervisor for your thesis. Depending on the university, either you can select a supervisor or the university gives you a supervisor. And also depending on the university, it's either you get the supervisor at the beginning of your master's degree or maybe just before you start your thesis writing process. Find out which one it is for you and get it out of the way while within time. Send an email asking them if they're available to take you up as a student to be supervised for that semester or not. This is key because this will determine how smoothly you guys work together or not. If they express that they are busy, that's even perfect because they've given you first-hand information directly from them, such that in the event that they choose to be your supervisor or accept you to be the student that they'll be supervising and they're extremely busy, you'll be very frustrated because a very busy supervisor who has other commitments needs to create time for you. And if they don't have time for you, that creates a delay in the system. And at least they are honest about it, which is really great. There's nothing more frustrating than working with a supervisor who is extremely busy. Very frustrating. So many delays come as a result of that. In the same email that you send to them asking them if they can be a supervisor, you will need to send your thesis proposal and your thesis topic or project topic. Depending, is it a graduate project or is it a thesis? But this particular video is about a thesis. So what is a research proposal? A research proposal is a document proposing a research project, generally in the sciences or academia, and generally constitutes a request for sponsorship of that research or not. Proposals are evaluated on the cost and potential impact of the proposed research and on the soundness of the proposed plan for carrying it out. So you basically need to put a title page, abstract and table of contents, introduction, literature review, research design and methods, implications and contributions to knowledge, reference list, and a research schedule and budget if necessary. So it's a quick rundown of what your thesis is all about. When you take up courses in research methods, that's most likely in your first semester of your master's, or maybe it's an undergraduate and you have to do a thesis. Throughout your learning period, you are going to take courses in research methods. The idea is that during research methods, it's a platform for you to come up with a research proposal that you can use to approach potential supervisors or research proposals that are needed to be given to the institute for approval purposes. If you do want a detailed video on research proposals, please do let me know in the comment sections down below, and I will definitely do a video on how to write a research proposal or a thesis proposal, as it were. So great. Now you have a supervisor, you're on track, you're moving towards writing your thesis. Communicate effectively with your supervisor so that you're aware of their timetable and they're aware of your timetable. Are you guys going to be meeting every week on a Wednesday at 7:30? It has to be clear and stated. Or is it in every 2 weeks? How often are they checking your progress? Do you have to give progress reports or not? How often are they going to be checking your work? You need to communicate effectively so that you guys are on the same page. Study how best they work to avoid any disappointments. This will also help you to manage how you guys work well together. Your supervisor is very important. So if you are actually given the opportunity to pick or select a supervisor, it's great, especially if you've been to the university before and you've worked with this person before and you guys got along. That's an added advantage. In the event that you actually don't know about this particular person, or maybe in order to get a place in a university, especially for master's programs, they require you to find a supervisor beforehand. It's important for you to do thorough research about the person who's going to be a supervisor. In some cases, maybe you guys will not get along, which is still okay, and you can appeal to change a supervisor, which is fair and fine. But the idea is that this person will be with you from the beginning to the end. So take notes. Supervisors are very important. Also figure out how best to avoid conflict with them. Understand how they work in order to have the upper hand in dealing with the supervisor. So clearly you have been thinking about a topic, but this is a key fact to remember. In the event that you're struggling with your research topic, how we did it, or how my class did it when I had to choose a topic that I was working with, let me show you. You get a paper, draw a spider diagram. Your thesis needs to be as specific as possible. The goal is precision. You want to answer who, when, why, where, and how in your research. It is an academic contribution. Remember, we're in 2022 and people have been doing thesis and researches since ages ago. What makes your topic different? What contribution towards the academic body within the field that you are studying are you bringing? So from the diagram, for example, you want to talk about women. All right, great. What about them? Gender inequality for women? All right, awesome. Where are these women you want to study? In Zimbabwe? In Nigeria? In Angola? All right, but that's a big country. How can you generalize your findings based on a whole country? Are you going to be talking to everyone in Zimbabwe to get a generalization? That is emphatically impossible. This is where research methods come in. It plays a key role in understanding your methodology and reasons behind your methodology, which is a chapter of your thesis. There's actually a chapter called methodology where you have to share and explain why, how you're going to do it. How are you going to gather this information? Goal is to answer the questions mentioned before: who, where, why, when, and how. These women who you're studying, there's need for a timeline, a period in time for the focus of your study. How exactly are we going to be looking at gender inequality of women in Zimbabwe, in Nigeria, in Angola? There we have it. We have a topic already. Exciting, but that's not enough. It is a very broad topic because gender studies itself is a broad topic. You need to break it down. As a social science scholar, this topic needs to come from a certain perspective and a theoretical background. Are we looking at it from a feminist approach, liberal perspective, postmodernist, constructivist? There are certain theoretical perspectives that need to be put in play. And I am speaking from a social scientist perspective. So for pure sciences, I'm sure there's another way that you could do it. Not too sure how it is done, but I'm speaking from a social science perspective. Even though you will choose a perspective, a theoretical framework, your literature review is probably in chapter 2, which will give you an opportunity to look at other perspectives and how people have already studied this particular topic. So let's say we are talking about gender studies, right? Chapter 2 literature review, basically you are going to be looking at what has been studied, identifying where the gap is within the knowledge contributions that have been put out there already. You can look at it from basically what people have been talking about with regards to gender studies in Africa, gender studies in Zimbabwe, gender studies in Angola, in Nigeria. What exactly, which articles have already been put out? What are people saying? And how do those people gather the information that they have put out? And from there, you can find a loophole as to where you can fit your particular research topic, where it's coming from, and how it's fitting into the academic contribution base. So when you look at it from the articles that are already there, academic and non-academic, but mainly academic articles that are there that have been put out. You can also have a segment which talks about theoretical perspective that has spoken about the same topic as part of your literature review. Because as I said before, people have been doing research since ages ago. So what makes your topic, what makes your contribution, what makes your research stand out or different? So during the writing process, right, you start off with a focus on the introduction. When I did my thesis, I focused on literature review first, however, so that I could get information about what has been studied, what yet to be studied, what is the knowledge gap that exists, and wrote this down on a separate paper that could give me insights as to how to structure my introduction, structure my abstract, and structure my conclusion. It also gives me an insight as to where my academic contribution fits into the knowledge base. Introduction helps you to set the tone, give direction to your thesis. So why I started with the literature review, as I said before, it gives me what's already there, what has been put out already, such that when I'm giving direction towards my thesis in my introduction, I'm not going to repeat necessarily what has already been researched by someone else. I don't know if that makes sense. You're trying to get information on gender studies, but how many people have studied gender studies already? Your thesis needs to come out with a fresh perspective of this particular topic. So doing literature review helps you to see what's already there and what's missing. This, however, may change as you go for frequent meetings with your supervisor and as they help you and as you find out more information. Hence why I said literary review should be the first thing that you focus in and not the introduction. As much as introduction is the first chapter, that would be in your thesis. However, it will not be the first focus as with what I did with my thesis, because the direction of my thesis can change at any time. So if I've already set a specific introduction, that may change. I feel like it's better to start off with a draft that you can put on the side, but not necessarily be the one that you will use. In the introduction, however, you are going to be looking at the background of your topic, research questions, statement of problem, objectives and aims of your thesis, significance of study or academic contribution, limitations, and maybe there are other topics that your university deems necessary. So you also need to check out the guidelines, the thesis guidelines that the university gives you in order for you to stay in track with what your university wants. Because maybe what my university wanted is not what yours wants. So you need to also do research based on what they are looking for. This is just a breakdown to help you understand what exactly, the general idea of how exactly you can go about writing your thesis. I forgot to mention, please choose a topic that you're interested in, not a topic that your mother is interested in, your brother, your friend, your best friend, your supervisor, a topic you are interested in. In the long run, it is going to be very frustrating for you to be researching on something that you have no interest in. Research needs self-motivation and self-drive, and if you do not have that, it'll be very difficult for you to actually conduct research that you're not interested in. So ensure that this topic is something that you can resonate with, something you are passionate about, interested in. It gives you ability and room for self-motivation and self-drive. You're the one who's going to be doing this research at the end of the day. So do yourself a favor. It'll be exhausting and draining, but at least if you like the topic, you will gather energy to push through. You'll probably work section by section. Just communicate with your supervisor as to how exactly you're going to do it. In my case, I worked section by section. Literature review first, then we went to introduction, but adding a bit of information to the background of the topic. However, we focused on the research questions, the academic contribution, statement problem, limitations, significance of study, background of story changed as we went along, and certain information needed to be included. So it was more of a draft than the main focus in the beginning. But as we went along our research and we got more information, maybe reading more articles and sharing opinions and thoughts and discussing in the discussion section, I was able to gather more information for my introduction. Literature review for me was very tricky. Very tricky, because I had no idea how to write, what to include, what not to include, which type of English to use. Am I saying I? Am I saying he? I had to learn a new language. But this is also based on what your university requires of you. It's better to speak in third person, and it's better to refer to researchers and previous studies rather than individuals. He said, she said, you know. There's a sort of language that you have to learn in order to communicate effectively in your research paper. Be aware of referencing styles. This is absolutely important. Your university will have the types of references that they're expecting from you, so you have to know, looking from the guidelines and talking to your supervisor, am I using upper style, Chicago style, footnotes, what exactly is needed for me to reference accurately and correctly, because you will not be approved if your reference style is incorrect for your university. So if my thesis, if referenced upper style, but your university requires you to write Chicago style, being inspired by my paper and utilizing my reference style will not allow you to be approved, and you'll probably fail. So you need to know what is required of you. I broke my literary review into content analysis and theoretical framework, as I mentioned before. Content analysis looks at what's been studied already, what angles were used, what was found, and what methods were used to find this information. Was it from a local's perspective, legal perspective, leader's perspective? Was secondary data used? First-hand information used to gather information? It's an understanding of what's been done. The second part was the theoretical framework, and as a social science scholar mentioned before, it looks at the several perspectives that looked at the topic at hand. It also gave insight into how I was looking at my own thesis, research paper, what theoretical perspective it was going to follow, and it also gave insight into previously studied theoretical perspectives of the topic that I was studying. It's a very important segment or section because it gives the reader insight into the relevance of your study. It also gives you an insight into the loopholes in research that has been done already, what has been looked at, what hasn't been looked at. Methodology is typically chapter 3. This is basically how you gather the information that you're using in your research paper. What are your sources? Is it a qualitative or quantitative data analysis? Did you conduct interviews, surveys? Did you distribute questionnaires? How did you do it? Did you go door to door? Did you use online platform to get people to fill in forms? How exactly was information and data gathered for your research paper? What are you basing your conclusions and results and discussion on? Then we have results or discussion segment. Some universities require you to write results as a separate chapter, discussion as a separate chapter. Some universities require you to put them together as results and discussion. So here you are basically sharing the information that you found in your methodology, breaking it down with analysis from what was gathered before in the literature review with what you have found and your own opinion on the matter. So it's a mixture of both, because you can make reference to what was said before with regards to maybe a specific topic that was found before by another researcher with regards to what you found, you get. So you can make reference to that, having mentioned it already in literature review. Length of your thesis depends on your university. As I said before, know what is expected of you. The guidelines will tell you clearly how you're supposed to write, which font you're supposed to use, which format, the size of the text. Typically, guidelines also give you information already. It's already a template that you have to fill in. So you just erase the differences or the certain information that is not relevant to you, and you add in your own information. The conclusion, share maybe 2 to 3 pages, 4 or 5 pages, depending with how long your thesis is. Insightful conclusion about what you found, how you're interpreting this information, and in some regards and in some aspects you have to add in your own opinion, your own solutions and suggestions. So it depends with the university and what they're expecting from you from the conclusion part. But basically, essentially, it is a summary of your entire thesis. References part or bibliography is the last part. After the conclusion, you have references or bibliography, depending with the format and the template and guidelines from your university. You will write out and share all the references that you used within the right reference form and format that your university expects of you. Maybe you have graphs, you have figures, you have pictures in your thesis. After references, there's normally an appendix that you can fill in and share this information. And then soon after that, you will have a segment where you have plagiarism check. And then for me, the final page was signature and approval from the head of department and the dean of the faculty, approving and saying that, okay, this person did indeed do their thesis, and also making reference to the university that I did my thesis with. So basically, this is how you write your thesis. Throughout, make sure you're working hand in hand with your supervisor so that they can be checking, correcting, and fixing what needs to be fixed, because there's nothing more frustrating than doing an entire thesis, doing so much research, and you're doing it absolutely wrong and you have to start again. That is super frustrating. So whichever way you're going to be doing it with your supervisor, make sure that you guys are working together hand in hand, getting the same information, and they're checking frequently so that if you have any corrections, you do them almost immediately. After your thesis, writing it together, and it has been approved, you will have to defend your thesis. In most cases, this is an oral exam that you will have to present. I have a video about it that I will link up here if you're interested in finding out how you can have the perfect defense and how you can present the perfect defense, because I felt like mine was pretty good. Alrighty. So yeah guys, this brings me to the end of my video. I hope this was informative, educative, exciting, and fun to watch as well. Please let me know if you do like this type of content. I do have a couple of people who came to me in my DMs. Hi girl, you know, I'm working on my thesis and I'm a bit stuck. Hi girl, I've got my defense coming up. What can I do? So this is why I came up with this video, so that if there's anyone else who needs help or instructions or guidance as to how you can write the perfect thesis paper, research paper, this video is just for you. As I said before, if you're interested in knowing how you can write research proposal paper, please do let me know in the comment sections and I can do another video about that. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll definitely see you in my next upload. God bless you. Bye.